Hi, welcome to the channel. If you're interested in taking up bushcraft, or perhaps you've just started bushcraft, then this video and the 4 that follow it are ideally suited to you. In this video, I'll attempt to answer the most common questions that I get asked about how to get into bushcraft. Those questions are: what gear do I need? Who do I go and learn from? Where am I going to train? And in this video, I'm going to answer those questions. The other thing we're going to look at is actually it's not that expensive to start bushcraft, and I'll show you how. So unless you're lucky enough to live in a wilderness area, where can you go to practice and perfect your bushcraft skills? Well, if we look on YouTube, you'll see a lot of guys in woodland building shelters, lighting fires, and you'll find that they have what's known as a permission. They've been to a landowner, they've explained what they'd like to do, and they've asked their permission, and they've been given permission to use that land. That's great, but not everyone has the ability to go out and get a permission on a piece of land. So where else could we go? Well, if I'm honest, an awful lot of what we do, you don't need to go very far to practice it. Things like fire lighting, well, if you've got a garden, you can practice your fire lighting in your garden. You can go through the different tinders, the different fire lays. All of these things can be practiced very, very close to home. The advantage of it being close to home is it means you can do it regularly, you can perfect it. On a 5-day course, you get just that, 5 days. If you practice these skills close to home, then you can do it every day of the week if you want to. Getting to know different plants, well, if you walk your dog or you walk to work, or anytime you're out and about, have a look around at what local plants there are. Take a little guidebook with you, get to know the common edible plants. Things like trees, well, go to common land or forestry commission land. All of these places, you'll get to see the trees, you can learn the different trees. Things like carving skills and woodcraft skills, again, that could be done at home in your back garden. Things like making cordage, you can sit in front of the television and spin up cordage to give you the practice. Obviously things like shelter building, well, that requires a little bit more forethought, but if you go to common land or forestry commission land and you look around, quite often you'll see children's dens. Well, children's dens and your shelters are very, very similar. And if you don't damage anything while you're building them and you take them down afterwards, they can be a really useful place to practice the different types of shelters that you're going to need. Probably my top tip would be go and get yourself a map of your local area. Get to know that map, get to know where the woodlands are, get to know where the public footpaths and the public rights of way are. Have a look to see where the rivers, the streams are, the beaches. All of these different things are all different resources that you can use and you can visit, and you can visit them regularly. And that is the important thing with your training, is it needs to be done regularly. By doing it close to home, you can do just that. So the next most common question I get asked is, who do you learn from? Well, a search of the internet will bring you up a whole list of different bushcraft schools. And yes, we could go with the big names, the ones that we all know, the guys we see on the telly. You could go to Woodlaw or the Pathfinder school, but you pay a premium for those guys. The tuition is very, very good, but it comes at a price. Look at some of the others, because there are some excellent schools and some excellent teachers out there that nobody much has heard of. In the UK, somebody like Pat McGlinchey up at the Backwoods School up in Scotland, absolutely superb. A real artist, a very, very good teacher, and his courses are really, really good at superb value for money. Wilderness survival skills down in Dorset, again, Joe and his team down there are superb, really, really good. Probably easily one of the best schools in the UK. Over in the States, I don't know the States so well, but in Canada you've got Karamat, who are excellent, and also Jack Mountain, which are both excellent schools with very, very good reputations. So shop around, and if you decide to go down that route, going on a course, paying to go on a course, then have a look around. Don't go for the obvious choices. There are downsides to booking yourself onto a course. Number one, you're only there for a limited time. And number two, they can be quite expensive. Not only in monetary terms, but also in time. Now, if you book yourself on a 5-day course, and like a lot of people, perhaps you only get 4 weeks holiday in the course of a year, then to suddenly take 5 days out of that time, when you could be spending that time with your family, your wife, your kids, etc., that can be a really, really big ask. Also, the courses aren't particularly cheap, even if you shop around, and so not everybody can afford it. So what other options do you have? Well, there's always YouTube. Have a look around on there. The advantage with YouTube is obviously you can bring it up on your phone. You can type in individual skills, search through, see if you can find some good videos of people showing you how to do those particular skills, and then you can practice those at home or in your garden, anywhere you can get mobile phone reception. As well as going on a course, going on YouTube, you could always do the old-fashioned thing and buy a book. Now, I've never been on a bushcraft course, but I have got an awful lot of books. The advantages with books, well, there's a huge amount of knowledge in them. Number two, normally they're written by people who really, really do know their stuff. You can put them in your day sack and take them with you, so you've always got a point of reference. I started off with one book back in 1976, Survival for Young People. I think now I'm up to probably 300 or 400 different books that I've got for reference. And I go back to them time and time again. A few good ones that I could mention. Well, there's Bushcraft by Richard Graves, written back in the 1940s by an Australian guy, and a lot of it is based on that hemisphere, the southern hemisphere. However, the sections on making cordage and rope and knots, some of the shelter building and the obstacle crossing sections are really, really good. In fact, if you look at a few of the faces who've done stuff on TV, you can actually trace an awful lot of the bits and pieces that they've done back to that book. Another really good book is Wilderness Survival Skills by Joe O'Leary. Joe is an incredibly knowledgeable bloke, and he brought out a very, very good book. It's very, very well illustrated, and it explains things in very, very simple terms. It's very, very well laid out as well, and there's a wealth of knowledge in there. You can pick it up off Amazon relatively cheaply, and it's there. You can put it in your day sack and you've got it. Another very good book is Ray Mears' Outdoor Survival Handbook. It's broken down in seasons, so it starts off talking about gear and equipment, but thereafter it is broken down into seasons. So in the autumn, for example, you can go to the section in autumn and you can look up different projects that you can go out and do in the woods, and I think that's a great idea. The illustrations are simple, the information is excellent, and I find it's a book that I go back to time and time again. Another big personal favourite that I've gone back to loads and loads of times, and many people consider it almost to be the Bible as far as bushcraft goes, is Mors Kochanski's Bushcraft. Originally published as Northern Bushcraft, it's skills for the northern boreal forests. The general bushcraft in there is excellent. It's broken down into crafts, so it talks about knife craft, axe craft, saw craft, firecraft, shelter craft. It also looks at different resources, plants, moose, varying hair, the willows, different things that you'll find out in the boreal forest. It's an excellent, excellent book. You can pick it up on Amazon, and it's one again. Put it in your day sack, you can go out to the woods, you can practice those skills that are in there, and the knowledge that's in there is incredible. So finally, gear. The actual gear that you need while you are training. I've put together a little collection of gear. It's all reasonably priced stuff. Yes, there's more Gucci kit out there. Yes, there's very, very expensive gear out there. But if you're just starting out, you don't need to lay out all that cash on something that you don't know whether you're going to like. Also, with all of this stuff, it's all stuff that will last you. So if you do decide that you like it and you do decide to keep bushcraft on as an interest, then this is stuff that will carry over and last you for years to come. It's all designed to fit in a day pack so that you can take it with you on your regular daily training trips. This isn't stuff for the weekend away. This isn't stuff for that week in the wilderness. This is stuff to take with you while you are training. Things go wrong. When putting together your pack, you need to think of 5 headings. Number 1, shelter. How you're going to be protected. Number 2, warmth. Human beings are warm-blooded creatures and we like to stay that way. So we need to have some provision in here that's going to keep us warm. Water. Obviously, we only go 3 days without water and we need to make sure that we are well hydrated. So we should have water with us at all times while we're out. And if you're not carrying the water, then you should have a means with you to be able to collect and treat water. And finally, food. If you're going to be out in the woods for the day, well, why not take some lunch of some description? So those are my 4 main headings. There's one other one, and that is emergency. A few bits and pieces you can carry with you in case things go wrong. So we'll start off with the pack to put it in. It doesn't have to be an expensive pack. Yes, we could go all canvas and leather with lovely brass buckles that would set us back a week's wages. Or we could just buy a cheapo economy one from a surplus shop. Or equally, you could go to a charity shop and pick up a small day sack. What you're looking for is something about 35 litres in capacity, maybe with a pocket or 2 on the outside and a pocket in the lid, and that's about all. It doesn't really matter about the colour, it doesn't really matter about the materials, to be honest. This one is a remake. It was an old one that I bought, and if you go back and look at my previous videos, you'll see how I put this one together. But basically, this is homemade. Okay. As I said, about 35 litres. That's enough space to carry enough gear for the day throughout the year. 5 main headings, and we'll look at those one by one. The first one we'll start off with is emergency. And emergency for what we do out in the woods is usually something that requires a first aid kit. I might get a scratch or a cut or a sting, whatever, but I need to have a little first aid kit, and it also needs to be accessible. So my first aid kit is held in the top pocket in the lid of my day sack. Now here it is, pretty much everything I need to deal with cuts, stings, bites, etc. Everything is in there. If you want to know the exact contents, go back into my videos, and there is actually a whole section on how to put together a personal first aid kit, and that will tell you everything that's in here and why. So that's that's my main emergency item. Next on my list is shelter. Shelter should be a priority. Now our first line of shelter is actually the clothing that we wear when we go out, and if you've picked your clothing right, you should have sufficient protection to protect you from the weather or the environment. If you want more details on exactly what clothing to wear, stuff that's not going to cost you an arm and a leg but will do the job, again, go back into my videos and there is a video called Bushcraft clothing. It's not the expensive designer brands, it's the practical El Cheapo I work type gear. I've used it for years and I know it works. My other shelter item, obviously if like me you live in the UK, you have to expect a bit of rain now and then, so you need some sort of waterproof with you. Also, if you're going to be out in the woods and you get a rainy day, it's a good idea to have some sort of shelter, something that you can put up so that perhaps you can sit, have your lunch in the dry, maybe spin up some cordage or look through a reference book, but somewhere that's protected from the elements. So what I carry is one of these, and this is a military style poncho. So it's a big rectangle of nylon, and in the centre of it, it has a hole with a hood, and you can just drape it over yourself and your rucksack and it will keep you dry. It's ideal for in the woods, perhaps not so good on the side of a mountain because suddenly that gives you a big expanse of material that can be taken by the wind, but for woodland work and most of the stuff we do at low level, these are absolutely great. They've got grommets on each corner or loops on each corner and poppers down the sides, and this allows them to be popped together. It also allows them to be used as a shelter. So I have this, which is my waterproof outer layer. It's also my shelter that I can put up if I'm in the woods. To help me with that, I've got a few other items. 4 simple homemade tent pegs, and these are just made out of sticks. Again, if you go back into my videos, you'll see there's a video called Simple Stick Projects, and it tells you exactly how to make these. They don't weigh anything, they don't cost anything, and when you're putting your basher up, if you've got these, it really helps to have them pre-made. I've also got my cord sets. And all these are lengths of cord with a little toggle on the end, and that just aids me in setting up my shelter quickly and efficiently without having to tie knots. It also allows me to change the configuration of my shelter to suit the conditions that I happen to find. Again, if you want details of how to put up one of these shelters or how to use the toggle system, then go on to my video section, and there's one called How to Rig a Tarp, and that will give you all the information that you need to know. I'll also be covering it on a little video specifically on shelters, and that's going to be part of this series. I carry a couple that I can use as a ridge line, and then some smaller ones that I use for around the sides. Next up is warmth, something that I can carry with me that gives me extra layer of warm clothing. So reaching into my day sack, I have my main warm gear, and all it is There's a woolly beanie and a fleece jacket. If you don't have a fleece, then something else that you could carry instead is a wooby. And a wooby, for those of you who don't know, it's a poncho liner, and it's like a lightweight insulated blanket. It fits inside your waterproof poncho. You can use it as an emergency sleeping bag, you can wrap it around yourself. And again, if you go into my videos, there's a project in there called the Super Wooby, and it's how to convert that US Army poncho liner into a really versatile piece of warm kit. So those are my warmth items: fleece jacket, woolly hat. Sometimes I'll carry a little neck wrap and a little pair of gloves, but at this time of year there's not really any need for it. Next up is water. As I said, we should carry water with us. We can't always guarantee having safe sources of water, so I always try and carry the water I'm going to need for the day, within reason. The actual container that you carry your water in, well, there's a myriad of choices out there. You can go from everything from throwaway plastic drinks bottle that you recycle, right up to something that will cost you a week's wages and is made from titanium. What I've tried to go for is the sort of the middle ground. Now, these quite cheap metal water bottles saves you using the plastic one. These will last longer. This one's a litre in capacity. They're not particularly expensive, quite comfortable to use, and they're readily available. You can get them in lots of different places. So that is option one. Option two, which is what I tend to carry more often, is a military style water bottle. There's quite a few different ones available. This one is made by Nalgene, and it's modelled after the US Army one. This one's a little bit lighter and it's clear, so I can see how much water is inside it. It also comes with, you can also get to go with it a metal mug, and the metal mug can also be used not only as a drinking container, but it can be used as your cooking pot. There's lots and lots of different types of metal mugs available, but I found this one to be particularly good. It's lightweight, it's easy to get hold of. You can also get hold of these lightweight cooking rings that fit onto the base. So what you can do is use them for warming fluids up, and we'll cover that a little bit more in a moment. So a water bottle and metal mug. The military type ones tend to be more robust. There's lots of different ones available. If you're in the UK, the British Army version of the American Army one, the metal mug and the water bottle, is really, really good. The water bottle is absolutely bomb-proof. The mug is excellent. It's got a really, really good construction to it. It's got measuring marks on the side, so you can see how much fluid that's going into it. The downside with those is they weigh about 100 grams more than this one. So water, simple water bottle. I tend to carry a couple of water bottles if I'm out for the day, so I'm carrying a minimum of 2 litres of fluid. The last item is food. I always carry a few items of food with me. Now, it might be sandwiches, but they're only good for some of the year. Other times of the year, I might want to carry, I don't know, some bread rolls or some noodles, packet soups, all of those types of things. And That's when your metal mug really comes into its own. Now, with my metal mug, I also carry a few other things. A metal lid which sits on the top. Now if I put a lid on something, it boils faster. If it boils faster, one, that speeds up my lunch break, but two, if I'm having to use fuel, then it's using less fuel up. I also carry a little wooden spoon with me so that I can eat with it, or I can stir my tea or my coffee with it. And I also carry this. This is my little brew kit, come cooker, come everything else that I need while I'm out. Inside, little bag with a few tea bags in. A small, I think this one's an old hand sanitizer bottle, and this will carry 50 millilitres of methylated spirits. I also carry half a dishwashing sponge and scouring pad, and then finally I carry this. Now it's not what it says on the outside, and what this is a monkey boy stove, and a monkey boy stove is a really clever little piece of kit that anybody can make. All it is a little Vaseline tin, a little bit of loft insulation, the fiberglass type stuff, and then a bit of an old sieve trimmed out and pressed down over the top to keep it all in place. And all we do with that, fill it with methylated spirits, and then light it, and then my little mug stand goes over the top. Now that little bottle of fuel contains enough for me to get 2 brews on the trail through the day. Obviously, with this being a metal mug, I don't have to only cook on the stove. I can also cook using fire. By placing this into the fire or next to the fire, I can get a brew on fairly quickly. So those are the basic elements covered. I've got something for shelter, I've got something for warmth, I've got something to carry my water in, and I've got something to cook my food in. Now I know some of you will be saying, you forgot tools, the things that we all love, the sharp pointy things, the knives, the axes, etc. Well, no, I haven't, and a lot of emphasis is placed on knives and axes in bushcraft, and a lot of people go out and spend loads and loads of money buying the perfect knife and the perfect axe. Well, to start with, you don't need them. You don't need the flash. You need something that's basic and functional, and something that will do the job. Now, my go-to knife most of the time is one of these. It's a Mora Classic No. 1, and it's made of carbon steel. It's a good functional knife for wood crafting. I can use it for other things, food prep, cutting cordage, etc. But it comes into its own when you're working wood with it. It's a fixed blade, so it's not going to fold on your fingers, and for the more extreme side of what we do, one of these is absolutely ideal. I made my own sheath for it just to make it a little bit more personal. Axes, well, axes, I can do an awful lot of what I need to do with my knife. If I'm not taking wood that's too big, which I shouldn't be, I should be trying to keep it all fairly minimal. I don't need an axe for splitting wood. I can do it with my knife. What I do need is a way of shortening wood down and harvesting wood, and for that reason, if I'm out in the woods, I usually carry a pruning saw. But do I actually need those two items? Well, the actual truth is, most of the time while I'm out training, and this has been the case for many years, since way before the days of bushcraft, I never used to carry a fixed bladed knife. What I carry on my belt, and I still carry it on my belt, is one of these. And this is it's a Swiss army knife, or at least it's made by Victorinox, and it's made for the German army. These are cheap. You can get these used second hand. If you talk to Kev down at Endicott's, I think I paid about a £5 for this. It's got a main blade that I shortened so that it comes within the legal limit, so I can carry this wherever I want. So if I'm going off to common land, or if I'm going to forestry commission land, I haven't got to worry about carrying a fixed blade knife, because I've got this, and this is completely legal to carry. Furthermore, it's got a couple of other tools. It's got a bottle opener, comes screwdriver. This is also exceptionally good when used with a ferro rod. Really good. It's also got a little saw, and it's a little pull cut saw. It's probably not the most efficient in the world, but for a lot of what we do, so harvesting little hazel poles for thumb sticks, and for cutting small stuff, this is all I need. On the back I've got a reamer, so if I need to gouge holes into things, I can do that with this. Obviously with a folding knife, boring down into things is quite a dangerous thing to do because it can fold on your fingers. Well, I don't need to bore into things with the blade because I've got a reamer that will do that. It's also got a little corkscrew on the back, and well, corkscrews. The number of times I've actually pulled corks with this pales into insignificance when I think of the number of times that I've used the corkscrew for unjamming knots that people have tied. As I said, these are cheap. I can carry this with me wherever I go. I don't have to worry about breaking the law. That's there, and it's more than adequate for probably 80% of the stuff that I do. The other bits that I carry: a ferro rod, really good fire starter. It's reliable, it's sound, it don't really need any more explanation. I also carry a small torch, and this one is an LED lens. I think it's a P3. It runs on one AAA battery that seems to go on forever, and it's great. I've got head torches, but most of the time this tends to get used. I've got a head strap for this, so I can hold it up here, but most of the time I just tend to hold it in my mouth for most of the things that I do after dark. Really good bit of kit, really reliable, and those three items plus a little sharpening stone are ideal for most of my bushcraft needs. So as I said right back at the beginning, this is the first video. Hopefully it answered any questions you may have. Hopefully it's made you think, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, then hit that like button, share it, and also subscribe to the channel. There's going to be 4 more videos to follow, and they are going to be shelter, water, warmth and food. All the basics that you're going to need as a novice in bushcraft. Feel free to get in touch. You'll see my email address come up at the top. Feel free to leave a comment across the bottom. If you want to pop over to the Etsy shop that I've got, it's Greencraft Shop. Nice and easy to remember, Greencraft Shop. Pop over there, have a look at some of the bits and pieces that I've got up for sale on there. I've been Neil, and until next time, stay safe.